This is Judge Joe Brown, and we're listening to We All Be News. News-free Dixie for the 21st century.
I'll be honored to have Brother John Ricks, who is a resident of Cortland, Virginia, which used to be known as Jerusalem back in Nat Turner's day. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Good to be glad to have you here, sir.
Yeah, I want to ask you a little bit about the Nat Turner story. Like I've been coming through here trying to find some information because I seen the movie The Birth of a Nation, but a lot of people are not in agreement with the historical accuracy of the movie. And I don't want to know, have you seen the movie?
Oh yes, I've seen the movie. I thought it was very touching. It hit a lot of things that I've read about, because I'm not a historian per se, but I enjoy history, love reading about history, and growing up here in Southampton County, the birthplace of Nat Turner, I found that particularly interesting, and I always wanted to learn as much as I could about it. Talking with some people, and I'm sure you have, a lot of people will say, well, the movie was not historically factual. I kind of beg to differ. I can't sit here and say, and no one from my understanding can sit here and say that Nat didn't say this or his wife didn't do that. But I look at it from the perspective in a micro, where being and I'm trying to understand Nat and the other African Americans at that time, the slaves, if you will. In the picture, a lot of people say, well, his wife wasn't raped. That's what a lot of people may say. Well, my mindset is that his wife may not have been raped, but I would feel comfortable in saying that Nat, as a slave during that time, did see African American women that were raped, sodomized, and abused. They may say that the scene where one of the landowners came by that night and wanted to sleep with one of the slaves' wives, they may say, well, that can't be proved. But my macro looking at it again is that may not have factually happened, but I can almost guarantee you that Nat and other slaves during that time saw that happen and knew that those things happened. So I look at it from that point of view. It was a story that I think, and I can't speak for Mr. Parker, but it was a story that he put in there to make you understand and get you the feeling of what everyone during that time saw. And I don't think anyone can stand there and say that women wasn't raped, they wasn't taken from their husbands when at the leisure of someone else, you know, and that men wasn't treated, African American men were treated less than human. Those things happen. Now, did they actually happen to Ned as in the picture? I don't know. But again, not being a betting person, but I would bet that he saw those things happen.
Let's go back. What do we need to know about the situation? Because you're a resident here. You heard about this story growing up, correct, all your life, basically?
Yes. I remember the story. I think it was around the 4th grade. I won't say the 4th or 5th grade. I would say the 4th grade. When I first heard about Nat Turner, it was always very interesting. Yeah, I don't think you can grow up here as an African American and not have heard the name Nat Turner, and you kind of get the feeling of, wow, you know. And I always get that feeling of, wow, when you're talking about Nat Turner, and when I was sitting there and I was looking at the movie, I took my son, soon to be 13 years old. I took my son there to see it, and all we could say, my son and I, because we talk about a lot of things, especially at the age he is now, because he needs to know, was wow. That's all we could say for a good little while. And I remember when we walked out of the theater and we went into the restroom, and another African American man walked in, and I got to add this part too. He was kind of big brother, big guy, and you would never think, stereotyping myself, you would never think that he would feel the way he felt. And I'm gonna tell you what he said. All we could say was, wow, my son and I. And when this guy came in the bathroom, my son and I, we was over washing our hands, and I looked at the guy and I said, did you just see that movie, man? And know what he said to us? Wow. And that's all you could say. When you walk out of that movie, all you can say is wow. Regardless, and I think regardless of where you are in terms of how you felt about Nat Turner, or what he did, but if 50%, I didn't say all, but if 50% of what you see in that movie was done, wow. And I think, again, a lot of people may not totally agree with what happened, but you gotta know those things happen. And I would beg anyone of any race to see that movie, and I think it will do what we need to do as people in this country, and that's start a conversation. We don't need to. Let's not get too deep into the this didn't happen or that didn't happen, but we know those things happen, and start a conversation. And that's what I think where we need to be in this country, because a lot of times I think white and black, I think a lot of times we are afraid to talk with one another about race because we're afraid of being labeled a racist. Well, that is and still is. Look at today's world and you know what I mean. You look at today's world and see that is still a huge problem in this country, if not the biggest problem in this country, and we need to get that rectified.
Okay, great. Have you noticed any increase in traffic of tourists to Cortland or in this area concerning Nat Turner?
No, I have not, but I know people that do work with people when they come through for tourism and things like that. I know that the county is very much involved in it. I know a couple of people that do provide tourist trips through and take you through. I do know that before the movie came out, we've had national television stations come through and talk about the issues. We've had people from national magazines come through and talk about the issue, and what today's Southampton County is like.
Wow. So I'm gonna ask you this as well, cause I know I've been reading some articles. My understanding that Nat Turner's skull was returned to his descendants on the opening day of the movie, actually on October 7, I believe. And I was reading some stuff, and I was hearing some interviews, and it's like, who's controlling the narrative of Nat Turner? It's like the relatives of the descendants are not having their involvement in the, I guess, getting the monies and stuff like that to create a tour. I was asking Rick Francis about the Southampton Historical Society, and it's interesting to know that they have possession of the sword that Nat Turner actually used. It's not on display, but also I know that the Smithsonian African American History Museum in DC has his Bible, and so I'm not trying to figure out, like, where do the descendants play? Do they have a thing that they, an organization or tour that they sponsor or create?
If I understand your question correctly, you want to know, do the family sponsors tours and provide knowledge to other people in the community or throughout the country about Nat Turner? I can't stand here and say that I know that they do. I can't say that they do. Maybe they do, but I can't say that the family is involved in the return in his sword, his Bible, or his skull being returned. Now, I can't say that they do. I don't know if that's happening or not.
I know the skull was returned to the descendants on October the 7th. Richard Hatchett, the first black mayor of Gary, Indiana, had it in his possession for, I guess, almost 15 years. And it was in a white family possession for 3 generations, something like that.
I've read that.
So you haven't seen it, like, you haven't heard
no, I
newspapers
haven't
talked about it here?
I've read about it, but I didn't see it in anything around.
Did it make local news here?
No, I didn't see anything about it.
That's wow. Okay.
I didn't see anything about it. If it was, maybe
it should have been national news.
Maybe I missed. Yeah, it should have been. Exactly, it should have been. But no, I can't say that it was in the local paper here. Maybe I missed it that day, but I didn't see it.
Did you have any ancestors involved in the insurrection that you know of?
None that I'm aware of. No. The only thing that I growing up here, and I returned here after serving in the military.
That's right.
And that still kind of gets me to today is the naming of some roads here.
Oh, this is what I want to talk to you about.
and
yes, sir.
Those roads, Blackhead Signpost Road, Hanging Tree Road, I think those, a lot of people say those are historical things that shouldn't change. I'm of the thinking that they need to change, and they should. Hanging Tree Road, Blackhead Signpost in particular, got its name because of after the insurrection. They went around and I believe killed 200 to 300 African Americans at the time because of what had happened. Now, when you look at that today, those things, especially, you can't really let that stand anymore, because when that initially got its name, it was named, and I don't think anyone can deny this, it was named to say, well, this is a warning. Right. This is a reminder that this is what's going to happen if you go against the system. Right. For lack of better terms, go on against the system. Well, this is 2016. I don't think myself, my son, or anyone else, or anyone needs to be reminded of that, of the cutting off of a head, placing it on a post to remind me or anyone else that you need to stay in your place. My argument with people, now I don't want to use the word, I shouldn't use the word argument. My point, my stance on that is that why don't you just, if you're going to say you want, and I've had people say, well, I'm talking about African Americans, right, say, well, let's keep that because it reminds us of history and it's part of history. Well, why don't, if we want an African American youth to be proud of something instead of showing something that degraded us, heck, why don't we have Dred Scott Road? You know, Dred Scott was born here in Southampton County. Right. Where's Dred Scott Road? Right. Where is the African American, the first African American astronaut? Why don't we put his? He wasn't born here, but why don't we put his name on? Why don't we have a Dr. Martin Luther King Road? You know, why don't we have a Booker T. Washington Road? You know, right. But we've got to have. But you're telling me that we've got to have something to remind black youth to stay in your place.
So the Blackhead Signpost Road, my understanding, you actually have a black male's head impaled on a stick.
Yeah, that's how it's got its name.
Really?
That's
it was
how
like
it got
right
its
after
name.
the insurrection, they put a black man's head on a stick
to say, hey, look at here, you stay in your place or this will happen to you. And I don't think anyone in this area will deny that that's how it got its name. But another part that kind of shocks me and gets me is that these roads weren't named until 1996.
Wait a minute. So you mean Blackhead Signpost was named 20 years ago?
Yeah.
And you got a lot of black folks that live in this area. Nobody, who's over the committee?
I believe the board, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the Board of Supervisors and some other people decided the names of the roads.
Are you serious? Like, we could name a blackhead signpost, but we can't get a Nat Turner memorial or statue in Southampton in Cortland? I mean, what's the issue with getting a Nat Turner memorial or statue or anything like that to commemorate him?
Well, I can't speak for the commemorative monuments or anything for Nat, but I can tell you that I went and talked to the board of supervisors at least 4 times, and at their monthly meetings, and no one wanted to talk about changing the name of those roads. No one at all. And
were they black or African Americans on that?
Well, it's a combination of both. And my feeling when I talked to him about that was that it was history, and they didn't want to change the historical views. And I had one gentleman, African American gentleman, who said to me, well, let's keep it that way so that we can so that we can tell our youth as to what happened here. And I said, well, there's a lot of other positive things that we can teach out.
Well, why you want to talk about why it happened in the first place? Because of Nat. Why we can't talk about Nat Turner's rebellion? If we're going to talk about the history, let's talk about everything.
Well, that's not going to happen here in Southampton County. Not to that degree.
Yeah, but they're okay with the blackhead signpost they put up 20 years ago.
Yeah.
This is insanity. You know this is insanity, right? I know you can't. I'm gonna say it's insanity.
That's one of the reasons I went down to talk to the board, because I found it ridiculous that in 2016 we have a road named that in Southampton.
So they're trying to traumatize young black people. That's what they saying. Like,
I don't know if that's. I don't want to use that word, because I do want to say that it is a reminder that, and again, that's why it was put up. That's why they did that in 1831 when Nat Turner insurrection. That's why they. And there's no other reason you can tell me that in 1996 they didn't have the same thought.
But we see reminders every day in social media of black folks getting out their quote unquote place and being put back in their place in coffins. Like
exactly.
Police brutality. I mean, why is it that people are so, or the system is so hung up on let us be reminded what happened to us as black people?
Right.
We're already traumatized.
Well, one of the things I
don't mean to get off of it. This is crazy.
I know. One of the things that I asked the board, and I'm very serious about this here, is when they talk about reminding.
Right.
When they talking about this is history. Well, I asked them, and maybe some people may say I'm off balance here, but I asked them, says, did you hear about the Holocaust?
Right.
And everybody in there says, yeah, I've heard about the Holocaust. Well, do you think that if you go to Germany, Switzerland, or Austria, or any of those places where there were internment camps for the Jewish people, for our Jewish brothers, that you're going to find a gas chamber avenue, incinerator road? No, you're not. So why do we need a blackhead signpost road? Because the other people in this world figured out that those are hurtful things.
Right.
So the Jewish people don't need to be reminded of the Holocaust. They lived it. Black Americans in Southampton County and throughout this country don't need to be reminded of slavery, because we lived it.
But they do have a museum, a Holocaust museum, though. They don't let you forget it.
Oh, no doubt.
And they got reparations for what they went through. And they were like, what I'm saying? Like, why don't we control the narrative? That's my issue. Like, I appreciate, like, I'm from Memphis, and I don't know if you are aware of that the first Grand Wizard of KKK and a war criminal and also a military genius and one of the largest slave traders is buried on one of our busiest streets. We're a city that's 80% black.
Didn't know.
Got over 700,000 people. This is a big city. It's like one of the top 20 biggest cities in the country. And yet, blocks away where they killed Dr. King, blocks away where they ran Ida B. Wells Barnett out of Memphis in the South, you got this monument to white supremacy. This white dude buried with his wife since 1904 on one of our busiest streets downtown, with a statue, a multi-million-dollar statue now, equestrian statue, facing south as a reminder. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got, the sons of the Confederacy, the daughters of the Confederacy, they go there like by the thousands every year to honor this man on Sunday before his birthday on July 13th. This guy, and also he's recognized by the state of Tennessee. But you mean to tell me that we can't talk about Nat Turner, or we can't talk about, you know, our history? We can't talk about the Haitian Revolution.
Right.
We want to put a parking lot over the burial place and the execution site of Gabriel Prosser. But we got to be reminded of the Confederacy every day, a terrorist organization that seceded from the Union, right? But yet we had Confederate flags hanging off state capitals and whatnot.
True.
And my thing is this, is like, whoever tells the story, they control everything. And my problem is, like, I'm concerned about us as black people. Why do we depend on other people outside of us to tell our story? Why can't we get our institutions enrolled? I'm saying, like, why is it that the white folks destroyed Nat Turner's body, they got his Bible, or they had his Bible and they had his sword? I don't understand that. You destroyed a man's body. We don't want to talk about him, but we got his Bible, we got his sword. It's like it's a cash cow. Black pain is a cash cow for America. Like, we love I go to Mississippi. They got the Civil Rights Trail, excuse me, and they got the Blues Trail. Yeah, you got black families that were traumatized by white terrorism in this country and not getting paid or compensated for it.
Here in Southampton County, it is one of those things that's not talked about, but it is talked about.
Right. It's like taboo, you saying?
Yeah, it is taboo. Very taboo. Right. And people don't want to talk about it. But then again, just like I said earlier, when you got this country and the road that we're on with this election coming up, I'll say it that way, this election coming up. My personal opinion is this, and I'm not going to go too deep into this.
Right, I understand, yeah.
But when a major party, say it again, when a major party in this country elects a blatant racist, and to be nominated, should I say, a blatant racist, to be its nominee. And people can say all they want about we have come a long ways, but boy, man, that's a scary thought.
Yeah.
That is, I've talked with people all the time, and I says, I'm gonna tell you what, this is scary. When people come on TV and say the things that he says and do the things that he do against minorities, women, and no one says stops him, especially the Republican Party. And I'm not trying to put a party on this, but when he says those things, you've got to be out of your mind to think that race relations are great in this country. It's not great. We've got a long ways to go. But the good thing about it is people like yourself and other people, if nothing else, Mr. Parker, when he made that picture, he made people open up. He made people think and says, hey, we still got a problem. We still got a problem. And look at the election. If that don't tell you we've got a problem, nothing does in this country. Nothing does tell you we've got a problem. And it's got to be, and again, life, John Rick's philosophy here, communication is the key. I don't care whether it's relationships or whatever. Even with your car mechanic, your doctor, your spouse, whatever. And human relations is no different. Communication. We've got to have communication. We've got to talk about race, and you've got to sit there and listen at both sides, all three sides, all four sides. And you've got to go into it as an African American. You've got to go into it as a white American, Asian, whatever sex you may be, with a very open mind. You can't sit there and say, well, that's the past. Well, let's talk about how does the past affect us today?
That's right.
And let's talk about how we can fix that. Instead of just saying, well, that's the past and let's move on. You cannot move on unless we get this rectified, unless we sit down and talk about it. I'm not naive to think that everybody's going to be honky-dory, this, that, and the other. But I do know this right here. Racism, no human being is born a racist.
No.
We're not born a racist. It is taught. It is sad to think, very sad, whether you're black, white, whatever. It is very sad to think in this world, 2016, and not just this world, I'm going to break it down to the United States. In these great United States of ours, that race is what it is in this country. It's so sad that we can't sit down and talk about it.
That's right.
And be open about it, because it's not going to get any better until we do.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Also, before I go, I'm curious about the Rebecca Vaughn house. If you know, like, this was Jerusalem back in the day, and my understanding from my research that Nat Turner and his rebellion did not make it to Jerusalem. It got stopped 2 miles out.
Right.
So was the house transported to
up to this side here? Yeah. I don't know. You're asking if up here when you saw the house?
Yeah, the house up here.
Right. That area that you saw up there, that is like a museum area, and up inside of a fence, they're rebuilding that house into the exact replica that it was. Many of the parts, from what I understand, is the exact house. If you go inside the fence down there, there are other old antique things that dates the county, and they tried to keep it as true to the way it was. But that house is on the outside because it's being built now, rebuilt.
But it's within the city limits, or was it? I mean, was it moved to that spot?
It was moved to that spot.
Okay, I was making sure.
Yeah, it was back over across the river there. If you
okay.
It was back over.
Yeah, I was trying to make sure.
And they're still renovating that house.
Okay, but what I'm saying, like, okay, they got a sign saying this is the last house where killing took place, but yeah, we can't get a. Okay, I know they know. Look, they talk about Nat Turner in the textbooks here, in the school textbooks, as far as you know. In the curriculum, because you knew about Nat Turner growing up.
It was in the 4th grade book. It was like a couple of sentences and moved on.
Wow.
Now, it doesn't go into it too deep into American history today. I mean, when I was growing up, there used to be a Virginia history.
It was required.
Yeah, that was like 4th, 5th grade. I want to say the 4th grade. That was a book for Virginia history that we took, and that's where I found out about Nat Turner. And then I remember going home, and that's when we talked about it in the family environment, and my brothers and sisters and everybody knew about it. My mother knew about it, so people would talk about it, and that's where you learn about it. You learn about it in the black community. You didn't learn about it too much in the white community. When I started school, schools were segregated here in Southampton County, and I don't believe it didn't get integrated until my 5th grade year, somewhere like that. So. That might be the reason why it was in the book then, and the teacher expounded upon it even more, because we had an African American teacher. I don't have a book. I'm sad to say this. I don't have a history book that our kids are taught in today, so I can't really tell you how much they're learning about Net or the insurrection itself. But I do think that it needs to be talked about, blood and guts and all, because that's reality check.
Right.
It's going to bring, I forget, one of the great generals said the best way not to have a war is to have a war, because when you have a war, it brings people to reality. You don't want to do this no more.
Right, exactly. Brother John Ricks, I want to thank you so much. In the words of the great Duke Ellington, we love you madly. Keep on producing and pushing.
All right, man.